In this video, I'm going to use my 16-year-old BMW to explain to you how supply and demand works in the open marketplace. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Whiteboard Finance. That, ladies and gentlemen, is my new to me 2003 BMW 540 M Sport with a 6-speed manual transmission. I bought that car off of Bring a Trailer, which is essentially an auction place for car enthusiasts. So these are just private sellers and private buyers, and Bring a Trailer is just the mediator or the broker, and it's essentially an auction. So that car is essentially one of 1,200 cars that were imported into the United States for 2003, and it is an extremely rare, highly desirable vehicle, okay? So the reason I bought that car is because it's going to go up in value, period. I'm 100% certain of that, and I'll prove it to you with this video right here. So what is a marketplace? So if we use Bring a Trailer, for example, it's just a place where buyers and sellers meet to exchange goods or services voluntarily, okay? So what does voluntarily mean? This is essentially what makes up a free market. Let's say that instead of cars, we'll just use milk, okay? And I know milk isn't transported or shipped in these bottles anymore. I'm sorry, I don't know why this is so funny. I was thinking that Chappelle Show skit where he's the milk delivery man. I don't know if you guys remember that. Definitely my younger viewers don't remember that. So you have a buyer and a seller, okay? So we essentially have a dairy farmer and a consumer that's at the grocery store. And let's just say this gallon of milk is priced at $3, okay? So in the buyer's perspective, if this is a willing or voluntary transaction, the gallon of milk is worth more than the $3 in their pocket. And if you're the dairy farmer, the $3 going to the dairy farmer is worth more than the gallon of milk that he's producing. This is what we call a fair exchange. It's a win-win situation. So this is a voluntary transaction. So that's what makes up a market, is a bunch of voluntary transactions that, you know, hopefully aren't manipulated by monopolies, war, government, whatever. So let's just pretend we live in a utopia, okay? This is just an example on paper. So to visualize this, what I've done is I've created a chart, okay? And on the x-axis, we're gonna have quantity. And on the y-axis, we're going to have what we call price, okay? So x-axis goes left and right, y-axis goes up and down, okay? Not rocket science. So here, I'm just gonna bring out some hypothetical numbers, okay? Let's just say that we're using $5 for a gallon of milk. 4, 3, 2, and 1, okay? And then for the quantity, this is just the quantity or the supply in the market. I'm just going to make up numbers. Let's just say 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Let's just say that's, I don't know, millions of gallons of milk in the market. I don't know, I'm just making this up. So let's talk about the demand line first, okay, or the demand curve. So the demand curve is essentially an inverse relationship between price and supply. So inverse just means this, okay? One goes up, the other goes down, essentially, okay? So if the price of milk is super high, and let me just chart out a supply curve here. So this is supply. I know I'm using the same color, but the last time I changed it up, I used green, and no one could see anything, so I'm not gonna do that again. Just picture this as demand, picture this as supply, okay? Pretty easy to remember. So picture, let's go back to the dairy example, okay? If the price for a gallon of milk is super high for whatever reason, there's going to be a high incentive for the farmer to wanna supply more. Okay, so they're supplying more. Remember, this is the supply curve right here, and it's matching up here. This is the $5. There's a big supply for the dairy farmer because he wants to make as much money as possible, okay? However, if a gallon of milk, let's just say, plummets to $1, the dairy farmer has very low incentive to produce milk because he's not making as much money per gallon of milk, if you will. Now, if you look at it from a consumer's point of view, if the gallon of milk is $5, okay, they have no incentive, or they're not going to be as incentivized or motivated to want to buy that milk, okay, because they think it's overpriced. And on the other hand, if a gallon of milk is $1, which you can see here, I know this isn't matching up exactly, I'm just freestyling this, there's going to be essentially a huge demand for it, but not as much supply. So this discrepancy right here Well, actually, before I get to that, the price point, which is ideal, is somewhere in the middle. And this is what we call equilibrium, okay? Equilibrium. That's where the price, the demand, and the supply meet, somewhere right in the middle. So if you're looking at this chart, it's right around 35. Let's just call it 35 million gallons of milk. And if I'm losing you, I apologize. I'm just going to plow through this, so you can always rewind if you want. I believe I'm making sense up to this point. So let's go back up here, and I will use red because I do think red does show up well. There's obviously discrepancy here. We're not at the equilibrium point. This is what we call a surplus, okay? There's too much milk being produced with not enough demand, okay? So you might be wondering, what's the equivalent to that down here from the other perspective? This is what we call, a shortage. This is a shortage because you have a ton of demand. However, the farmer is not incentivized to produce any milk because he's not getting that much money for it. So there's not enough milk, there's too much demand, this is a shortage. So there needs to be some sort of equilibrium point discovered, okay? So if that visualization helps you make sense, there's essentially only 4 things that can happen in a free market. Supply can decrease, so the supply goes down, okay? Supply can increase, so the supply goes up. Demand can increase, okay, which is over here, and then demand can decrease, which is over here. So with all this being said, these demand lines and these supply lines can move due to outside factors. So this is the whole point of the video, relating it back to my BMW, okay? So if I want to, let me just clean this up a little bit. I'm not going to erase the whole thing because I got lucky and this actually looks somewhat decent. Okay? So remember that this vehicle, actually I use red for this example for both of these. Hopefully red shows up. So the demand for this vehicle is high. So the demand line is going to shift. It's going to shift over because there's increased demand. And not only that, there's less. So remember, this is the supply line. The supply line is going to shift left because there's less of it. There's not more of it. There's less of that car that's in that condition with that many miles. So that's going to shift to the left, if that makes sense. So now, instead of the equilibrium being right here in the middle, kind of like that bullseye, if you guys can see that, the equilibrium, come on, moves up, which is now here, which is now at a higher price point. So instead of paying $3 a gallon, you're going to be somewhere at $4.50, right? So this is just a very simple way of showing you how supply and demand can affect certain things. So when I buy my cars, I made $4,000 on my E55 AMG. That was a rare car. I bought it at the right price. The demand was good. Supply was low. I made like $4,000 on that car. That's what's going to happen with this 540. I'm not putting a lot of miles on it, so it's going to be high in demand. It's in excellent condition, which increases the demand. It's not some clunker, okay? And then the supply is lessening, okay? So the supply line moves to the left, which makes it harder to find. So when the demand increases and the supply decreases, the only way that the price is going to go is up, okay? Unless you're dumb and you sell it, or you don't know what you have and you sell it for less than you have into it, okay? So keep in mind, I have 15.8 into that car. If this channel is still around in 4, 5, 10 years, who knows how long I'll own that car, I will almost guarantee you that I will sell that car more for what than I bought it for. Sorry. So if that makes sense, give me a thumbs up. If I butchered this, don't give me a thumbs down. Just let me know in the comments where I messed up. I don't think I did, but ultimately I just wanted to give a quick, very sophomoric overview of what supply and demand really looks like when it's charted out. And again, this can work in both ways. So say there's a big epidemic, milk is proven to make you bald, or make your arms fall off. I don't know, I'm just making stuff up. That will obviously shift the demand curve in different ways, and it'll affect the prices as well. So I hope this helps you give you a basic rudimentary understanding of supply and demand, and it also gave me an opportunity to finally document that car. So thank you so much. If you got value out of this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with one friend. I would greatly appreciate it. And as always, have a prosperous day. Does it look good?
Yeah.
In this video, I'm going to use my 16-year-old BMW to explain to you how supply and demand works in the open marketplace. Stay tuned.
Yeah. Yeah.